Welcome to our immigration briefing show, folks. Today, we've got a trio of intriguing stories from around the globe. First up, Cuba is rolling out the red carpet for Chinese tourists by offering visa-free entry as direct flights kick back into action. This move is expected to spice up tourism and strengthen ties between the two countries. Moving on, over in Hong Kong, the Labor Day Golden Week is anticipated to see mainland Chinese visitors splash out more than a whopping 2 billion Hong Kong dollars. That's a lot of shopping and dining, signaling a robust rebound for the local economy. And lastly, we're diving into a more sobering topic, the rise of far-right political parties in Europe. With countries like Italy and Sweden seeing significant shifts to the right, we're left wondering about the implications for the continent's political landscape. So, buckle up for a detailed exploration of these stories. Please stay tuned for more details. In a move that's causing ripples of excitement across the travel industry, Cuba is rolling out the welcome mat for Chinese tourists in a big way. According to the South China Morning Post, this vibrant island nation is removing visa requirements for Chinese passport holders starting this month, coinciding with the resumption of direct flights between China and Cuba. This policy shift, announced by the Cuban tourism minister at a tourism fair, aims to rejuvenate travel and strengthen ties between the two countries. Historically, the logistical challenges and costs associated with travel have kept Chinese tourists at bay. However, with these barriers removed, Cuba is poised to become a more accessible and appealing destination. This move is not just about boosting tourism, it reflects the deepening economic and diplomatic relations between China, Cuba's largest trade partner, and the Caribbean nation itself. Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, a different kind of tourist boom is underway, as reported by the South China Morning Post. The city is anticipating a windfall from mainland Chinese visitors, expected to exceed 2 billion Hong Kong dollars, $256 million, in spending during the Labor Day Golden Week. Kevin Young-Yun-hung, Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism, shared that nearly 670,000 mainland tourists had entered Hong Kong in the initial days of May, with numbers potentially climbing over 700,000 by the week's end. This influx of visitors and their spending is a much-needed boost for Hong Kong's tourism sector, highlighting the significant economic impact of holiday travel from mainland China. Across the globe, in Europe, a different narrative is unfolding, one that touches on the political landscape rather than tourism. The New York Times delves into the rise of far-right politics in Europe, spotlighting Jordan Bardella of France's National Rally Party. Bardella, a young protégé of Marine Le Pen, represents a new generation of far-right leadership. This trend isn't isolated to France, Italy, Sweden, and the Netherlands are witnessing similar shifts. Italy's government, led by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni with neo-fascist roots, and Sweden's reliance on the Sweden Democrats, a party with neo-Nazi origins, for a parliamentary majority, underscore the growing influence of far-right ideologies. The Netherlands' Geert Wilders, known for his controversial remarks about Moroccan immigrants, further exemplifies this shift. These developments signal a significant political transformation in Europe, raising questions about the future direction of the continent. These stories, from the welcoming shores of Cuba to the bustling streets of Hong Kong and the shifting political landscape of Europe, offer a glimpse into the dynamic and often complex tapestry of global affairs. Whether it's through the lens of tourism, economic impact, or political change, these narratives underscore the interconnectedness of our world. As Cuba opens its arms to Chinese tourists, Hong Kong cashes in on a golden week of tourism, and Europe grapples with the rise of the far right, it's clear that change is the only constant. In a world where diplomacy often treads a fine line between alliance and critique, recent remarks by U.S. President Joe Biden have stirred a pot of controversy with two of America's key allies in the Indo-Pacific region. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation reported that Japan had taken issue with Biden's characterization of the nation as xenophobic. This comment came during a campaign event where Biden lumped Japan together with China, Russia, and India, suggesting that these countries were facing economic challenges due to their reluctance to welcome immigrants. The Japanese government, in response, labeled Biden's comments as unfortunate, highlighting a perceived misunderstanding of Japan's immigration policies. The White House later clarified that Biden's remarks were aimed at underscoring the value of immigration to the United States, a clarification that Japan acknowledged, albeit with a hint of diplomatic strain. The situation was similarly received in India, as reported by the Toronto Star. Both Japan and India expressed their discontent with being described as xenophobic. India, in particular, defended its stance as one of the world's most open societies, a claim that sits in stark contrast to Biden's grouping of the nation alongside Russia and China as economically struggling due to a lack of immigrant acceptance. The White House's clarification attempted to smooth over the ruffled feathers, emphasizing that Biden's comments were not intended as an offense but rather to highlight the United States' identity as a nation built on the back of immigrants. Despite this, the episode has underscored the delicate balance of international relations, especially among nations that are pivotal in the U.S. strategy to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. Meanwhile, on a more personal level of international relations and the movement of peoples, a heart-wrenching story from CBC sheds light on the complexities of immigration and the bureaucratic limbo that can ensnare those seeking refuge. Marilyn Kaskin, a Palestinian woman residing in St. John's, has found herself in a desperate plea to the Canadian government. After successfully escaping the tumultuous conditions in Gaza, Kaskin's brothers find themselves stranded in Egypt, their path to Canada mired in uncertainty. Despite Kaskin's efforts, which included a personal trip to Cairo to facilitate her brother's escape, there have been no updates on their application to come to Canada. Kaskin's call to the Canadian government is not just a plea for her family but a call to action to extend the same level of commitment and urgency that was shown to Ukrainians fleeing the Russian invasion. The juxtaposition of these stories highlights the multifaceted nature of international relations and immigration policies. On one hand, diplomatic tensions can arise from comments that are perceived as misjudgments of a country's policies or societal attitudes. On the other hand, individual stories of struggle and the quest for safety underscore the human aspect behind the political debates on immigration. Whether it's the diplomatic spats between nations over perceived slights or the personal stories of those caught in the crosshairs of bureaucracy, these narratives serve as a reminder of the ongoing challenges in navigating the complexities of international politics and human migration. In the bustling region of Peel, a beacon of hope is on the horizon for asylum seekers. As reported by the Toronto Star, the local government, led by the optimistic Brampton mayor, is in the throes of planning a reception centre that could transform the lives of over 1,000 asylum claimants each month. The ambitious project, set to open its doors in July, hinges on the critical financial backing of both the province and the federal government. A staggering $46 million in additional funding is sought to breathe life into this initiative. The center promises to offer more than just a roof over the heads of its inhabitants. It is envisioned as a sanctuary providing temporary shelter, food, health and social support, legal aid, and other essential settlement referrals for around 1,300 asylum seekers monthly. The proposal, now sitting on the desk of Mark Miller, Canada's Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, awaits a green light. With an estimated $15 million required for renovation and operation, plus additional funds for creating dormitory-style shelters, the Peel region stands at the precipice of a monumental effort to support those in dire need. Across the globe, a diplomatic kerfuffle has unfolded as Japan and India find themselves in the crosshairs of U.S. President Joe Biden's controversial comments. The Toronto Star reports that both nations have taken umbrage at being labeled xenophobic by the American leader during a campaign fundraising event. Biden's remarks, which lumped these countries with Russia and China as economies facing struggles, sparked immediate backlash. Japan swiftly countered, asserting that Biden's judgment lacked a solid grounding in the reality of its policies. India, on the other hand, championed its status as the world's most open society, vehemently rejecting the characterization. The White House scrambled to clarify, stating that Biden meant no offense and was merely emphasizing the United States' identity as a nation built by immigrants. This diplomatic hiccup comes at a time when Japan and India are considered pivotal allies of the U.S. in its strategic efforts to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. The tapestry of these stories, spanning from the local endeavors in Peel to the legal battlefields of luxury brands and the diplomatic corridors involving Japan and India, paints a vivid picture of a world in flux. Each narrative, whether it's about providing sanctuary to those fleeing turmoil, challenging the financial status quo of luxury transactions, or navigating the delicate balance of international relations, underscores the complex interplay of policy, power, and principle that shapes our global landscape. In the serene landscapes of Sweden, known for its egalitarian society and progressive values, there's been a seismic shift in the economic landscape that's caught the eye of the BBC. Over the past 3 decades, Sweden has experienced a meteoric rise in the number of billionaires, catapulting from a modest 28 in 1996 to a staggering 542 kronor billionaires in 2021. This Nordic nation now boasts one of the highest proportions of billionaires per capita globally, a phenomenon largely fueled by its booming tech scene. The country has become a fertile ground for unicorn startups, with more than 40 companies reaching valuations of over $1 billion in the last 2 decades alone. This wealth surge is also attributed to low interest rates, making borrowing for investments in property and high-risk assets more accessible, and tax policies that have increasingly favored the wealthy. In a bold move in the 2000s, Sweden abolished wealth and inheritance taxes and cut corporate tax rates, further paving the way for the affluent to thrive. However, this growing disparity has sparked a debate about the societal impact of billionaire wealth, urging a more nuanced public discussion on the matter. Crossing the Atlantic to Canada, the Globe and Mail sheds light on a unique trend where retailers are doubling as bankers, a phenomenon that's raising eyebrows among consumer advocates. Giants like Canadian Tire, Rogers, and Loblaw have ventured into the banking sector, offering services that seem to prioritize spending over saving. According to Vas Bednar, host of the podcast Lately and executive director of McMaster University's Master of Public Policy in Digital Society program, these retailers are leveraging their banking services to encourage consumers to spend more, all while pocketing lucrative credit card fees. Bednar argues that this intertwining of retail and banking services not only promotes excessive consumerism but also raises concerns over consumer privacy, data security, and the integrity of lending processes. She advocates for a separation between retail operations and banking services to safeguard consumer interests and ensure a fairer financial landscape. Meanwhile, in Australia, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation reports on a tumultuous week for the government, spotlighting its vulnerabilities amidst a contentious political climate. A violent home invasion allegedly committed by a former immigration detainee has ignited a fierce debate over violence against women and the efficacy of the government's zero-tolerance stance on violence. Opposition leader Anthony Albanese has pointed fingers at the government, accusing it of failing to ensure women's safety and demanding the sacking of the immigration minister. The government, on its part, has tried to distance itself from the judiciary's decision to release detainees but faces criticism over its handling of the situation. Prime Minister Scott Morrison's change in tone indicates a belated recognition of the issue's gravity. However, the opposition views this incident as emblematic of the government's broader failings on community safety and immigration. As the government gears up for its upcoming budget, the shadow of immigration looms large, promising to be a contentious issue that the opposition is keen to leverage for political advantage. From the billionaires of Sweden to the retail banks of Canada, and the political controversies of Australia, these stories weave a tapestry of global trends that challenge conventional wisdom and call for a re-evaluation of societal norms and policies. Whether it's the debate over wealth distribution, the blending of retail and banking, or the political handling of sensitive issues, these narratives underscore the complexity of navigating the modern world's economic and political landscapes. In the intricate tapestry of global politics and societal movements, the United Kingdom finds itself at a crossroads, with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at the helm of a Conservative Party that is bracing for a tumultuous journey ahead. According to the New York Times, Sunak's leadership is under intense scrutiny following a series of electoral setbacks that have left the party reeling. The recent local elections were particularly telling, with the Conservatives losing approximately 40% of the seats they were defending, a staggering blow that has sent ripples of concern throughout the party's ranks. National polls further compound the sense of impending doom, showing the Labour Party leading by a margin of over 20 percentage points. This dramatic shift in political fortunes has not only raised questions about the Conservative Party's future but also about Sunak's ability to steer the ship in these stormy waters. Adding insult to injury, Sunak recently became the subject of ridicule over a promotional video intended to highlight government savings. Critics were quick to point out inaccuracies in his figures and mock his choice of props, underscoring the challenges he faces in connecting with the electorate. Amidst the political upheaval, life's simpler pleasures and seasonal traditions continue to unfold, offering a momentary respite from the complexities of governance and policy. As reported by Yahoo US, 1-800-FLOWERS is ushering in the spirit of Mother's Day with a heartwarming offer that is bound to bring smiles to faces across the nation. The online flower delivery giant is offering up to 40% off on an array of stunning bouquets and gifts, making it easier for people to express their love and gratitude to the special women in their lives. From the timeless elegance of roses and tulips to the vibrant hues of hydrangeas and lilies, these floral arrangements are available at prices starting at $43. Moreover, the company is providing free standard shipping or reduced rates on expedited delivery for members of its Passport program, ensuring that these tokens of appreciation arrive in time for the special day. On a different note, the South China Morning Post highlights a story of resilience and new beginnings that transcends borders. Andy Ng Shuhong, a former Hong Kong district councillor, has made history by being elected to the Wokingham Borough Council in the UK. Ng's election marks a significant milestone for Hong Kongers in the UK, showcasing their growing involvement and integration into British society. He is the second former Hong Kong councillor to carve out a space in the UK's local political landscape, riding on the wave of migration facilitated by the British national, overseas, status. This pathway to citizenship, offered in response to the national security law imposed by Beijing in 2020, has opened doors for many Hong Kongers seeking new opportunities and a voice in their adopted homeland. As a member of the Liberal Democrats, Ng's victory in the Maiden Erlek and Whitegates ward is a testament to the enduring spirit of democracy and the universal quest for representation and inclusion. These stories, though diverse in their themes and settings, paint a vivid picture of a world in flux. From the corridors of power in the UK, where a Prime Minister grapples with the daunting task of leadership amid political turbulence, to the heartwarming gestures of love and appreciation on Mother's Day, and the inspiring journey of a former Hong Kong councillor finding his footing in a new political arena, the common thread that binds them is the resilience of the human spirit. As the world navigates the challenges and opportunities of this era, stories like these serve as reminders of our capacity for adaptation, compassion, and growth. India has firmly dismissed US President Joe Biden's assertion that xenophobia is slowing down the economic progress of some South Asian countries. Foreign Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar emphasized that India's economy is on solid ground, highlighting the nation's long-standing openness to immigrants. He pointed to the Citizenship Amendment Act, which facilitates persecuted immigrants from neighboring countries in acquiring Indian citizenship, as proof of this openness. Biden's remarks were made at a fundraising event where he praised the positive impact of immigration on the U.S. economy. This comes amidst the International Monetary Fund's prediction of a slowdown in the growth of Asia's leading economies, including India. Biden's comments are part of his broader campaign narrative, contrasting his stance with Donald Trump's anti-immigrant policies, while he aims to bolster ties with India and Japan to counterbalance the influence of China and Russia. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.